Internal Revenue Service IRS tax news. IRS urges taxpayers to gather tax documents now for smooth filing later. IR 2021-18, January 22, 2021, Washington. The Internal Revenue Service is reminding taxpayers that organizing tax records is an important first step for getting ready to prepare and file their 2020 tax return. Taxpayers should keep all necessary records such as W-2s, 1099 receipts, canceled checks, and other documents that support an item of income or a deduction or credit appearing on their tax return. So obviously we're going to be starting to gather up our information. If we work somewhere else, we're going to get the W-2 information that we're going to be gathering. If we have a sole proprietor business or some other kind of income coming in, we're going to be collecting the 1099s. Remember that there might be a lot of people moving from W-2 type of employment or supplementing their income with other kind of things such as gig work or something like that, in which case they might be filing a 1099 they might be filing a Schedule C for the first time for the sole proprietor type of business, and therefore you might be getting 1099 income if you are in that area. In other words, if this is the first time that you're filing a Schedule C business, make sure that you file the Schedule C, pick up the income on it, and also pick up the related deductions to it. If you do not do that, what will happen is the IRS will then gather 1099s, and they will only have the revenue side of things, and they may try to assess then a tax based on the revenue side of things, and not take into consideration the deductions, the expenses, business expenses, given the fact that they don't have them unless we file the tax return. So don't ignore the tax return. If you have Schedule C business, if you have 1099 income, make sure to pick that up. Any other supporting documentation, of course, for credits and for deductions, you want to make sure that you're keeping that and you have that available for you. The recovery rebate credit, it's kind of like the new thing that most people are kind of concerned with because it's a new thing this year. It's going to be tied to the economic impact payments. So just remember, it's only really applicable if you didn't get the full amount of the economic impact payments, round 1 or round 2, then you want to get the documentation necessary and see if you could then qualify for the recovery rebate credit, which might then adjust for any problems in the less than full payment of 1 or 2 rounds of the economic impact payment. Back to the text, taxpayers should develop a system that keeps all their important information together, which could include a software program for electronic records or a file cabinet for paper documents labeled folders. Having records ready at hand makes preparing a tax return easier. So obviously you want to gather all this information up, make sure it's available to you when you start to prepare your tax return, whether you do that yourself, whether you do it with a free file software on the IRS website or go to someone else for support and assistance with preparing the tax return. You also want to make sure that you keep that information on hand. Remember that just filing the tax return doesn't mean you're done with it. And even when you get the refund, if you're getting a refund or pay the amount that's due, that still doesn't mean you're done with it, because the IRS can have at least 3 years in the statute of limitations to come back and ask any questions about it. And you want to make sure that your documentation is good enough so that you can look at it 3 years later, or possibly have someone else help you look at it 3 years later, and they can pick up what they need in the event that there are questions about it at that time, when the information is old and you're no longer thinking about it, and the IRS is coming back and question about stuff years ago, and you're going to pull it up because your documentation is so good and organized, you can just answer all the questions and things will go well. So to avoid refund delays, taxpayers should be sure to gather all year-end income documents so they can file a complete and accurate 2020 tax return. Most taxpayers will receive income documents near the end of January, including. So you should be receiving these forms shortly, if not having them at this point. You're going to be getting the forms W-2, wage and tax statement. That, of course, coming from the employer. Form 1099 miscellaneous income. We got the Form 1099 INT, interest income. Form 1099 NEC, that's the non-employee compensation. This is kind of like a new form, but it's going to be one that many people get. So if you have a sole proprietor type of business, you might be receiving the 1099 NEC. That's going to basically report the revenue side of the income. Obviously, the interest income would be from like a bank or something like that you would be receiving that. Form 1099G, certain government payments like unemployment compensation or state tax refund. So if you got unemployment, many people are getting unemployment in 2020 that may not have received unemployment in the past. And if you get that, it is a taxable type of thing. But the IRS should give you the documentation, or the state, or you should get a 1099-G for it, which will report the income that you're going to have to report then on the tax return as well. Then we got the Form 1095-A Health Insurance Marketplace Statement. So if you have the health insurance through the marketplace, you got to make sure that you're filling out the marketplace insurance correctly, so that you're tying out any kind of payments that you may have had reductions in the premium and whatnot that would be tied out to that as well. So that should be coming shortly soon. So view IRS account online. Taxpayers can view their online account, allowing them to access the latest information available about their federal tax account and most recently filed tax return through a secure and convenient tool on the irs.gov, irs.gov, IRS website. This can help taxpayers if they need information from last year's return. So if you need last year's return to help you out with this year's return, you typically want to have that information, because last year's return should be kind of the baseline to be filling out the return for this year, although this year's probably a lot different for many people. But still, you want the last year as kind of like the baseline that you can build off of. If you don't have it, you might be able to get access to at least some information on the IRS website. Additionally, in the coming weeks, individuals with an account on irs.gov/account, there's a link to that here, will be able to view the amounts of the economic impact payments they received, as well as the latest information available about their federal tax account. So the economic impact payments went out first and second round. You can go on the IRS website and see what they see on their side as being distributed out. That then should help you to be able to assess whether or not you qualify for the economic impact payment. So whether you or not you qualify for the recovery rebate credit, which is basically the economic impact payment, or the tool that will be used to fix any problems with the economic impact payment. So the economic impact payment went out round 1 and round 2. You can kind of think of it as a prepayment to the credit, which is the recovery rebate credit, which is tied to the 2020 tax return filed in 2021. So they guessed the amount. You can think of it as them guessing the amount that you should receive for the recovery rebate credit, prepaid those out in the form of the economic impact payments, and now you're double checking to see if that prepayment that went out that's tied to the 2020 tax return is the correct amount. If it is, then no problem. Don't really need to do anything. If it's not, then you may qualify for the recovery rebate credit, and you can reconcile the difference on the 2020 tax return. Now, there might be some people that basically you want to go on the IRS website and see on your records the amount that you received. Does that match out to the IRS records, the amount that they say that they sent out? If they sent something out and they sent it to a wrong address or something like that, and you didn't receive it, then there still could be some discrepancy there, and you want to see if there's an issue there. If they sent it out to some place that you no longer have, they mailed it to the wrong address or something like that, then that check you would think wouldn't clear, and the IRS should be aware of that at some point in time. But just realize that if your economic impact payment was short, or you just didn't get it, and you would think that you should have gotten it, then, or if you didn't get the second round and you got the first round, so you would think that you would have gotten the second round, then you might want to go to the irs.gov/account where you'll be able to view the amount of the economic impact payment they received, as well as the latest information available about their federal tax account. Okay, so eligible individuals who did not receive the full amount of both the economic impact payment may claim the recovery rebate credit on their 2020 federal tax return. In order to claim the full amount of the recovery rebate credit, taxpayers will need to know the amount of the economic impact payment that was received. Visit Secure Access, how to register for certain online self-help tools. There's a link to that here for more information about how to create an account or how to reset the username or password. Remember, unemployment compensation is taxable. So they're going to remind us in bold here that unemployment compensation is going to be taxable, because most likely many more people in 2020 are receiving unemployment compensation, and it is something that's taxable, and you should receive documentation about it so that you can then add that to your taxes for 2020 filing. Millions of Americans received unemployment compensation in 2020, many of them for the first time. This compensation is taxable and must be included as gross income on their tax return. Taxpayers can expect to receive a Form 1099-G showing their unemployment income. So if you have unemployment income, you typically have to include it. You got to include it in income generally, and you should get documentation for it. So it should be easy to do so because you'll get a 1099-G, which is going to report the income to you. There's a link to the 1099-G if you have questions about that. There's a link to unemployment income if you have questions about that and want to look into it further. Taxpayers can elect to have federal taxes withheld from their unemployment benefits or make estimated tax payments, but many do not take these options. So obviously, if you're getting unemployment, you're probably not, you kind of need the cash at that point, possibly. So you're probably not opting in for the withholding out of the unemployment checks, but you do have the option to do so, to take the withholding out of the unemployment in a similar fashion as you would with the W-2s. Like they say, most people don't do that because they kind of need the money at that point in time. So that means that if there's no withholdings and you have the income, that's more likely that you're going to, owe taxes on it in that situation. So in that case, taxes on those benefits will be paid when the 2020 tax return is filed. Therefore, taxpayers who did not have tax withheld from their payments may see a smaller refund than expected or even a tax bill. So obviously, if you got income, it's kind of like W-2 income. Like if you got W-2 income and the employer was not forced to take money out of your paycheck and pay it to the government on your behalf, then the IRS would be coming after you to actually write the check. And that's what happens with unemployment. If you don't opt in to have the money taken out directly from the unemployment you're receiving to go to the government, now you have income that no withholdings were taken on, and that would make it more likely that your tax refund would be smaller or that you would owe taxes at the end of the year. Individuals who receive a Form 1099-G for unemployment compensation they did not receive should contact their state tax agency and request a corrected Form 1099-G. This is important for anybody that has a problem with this 1099s, any 1099, and tax preparers as well, right? So if there's a 1099 that's wrong, like a 1099-G, for example, and you get it and you say, hey, I didn't get any unemployment, your 1099 is wrong. Well, what can you do about that? If you file the tax returns and you put something in your tax return different than what's on the 1099, you're almost certainly going to get a problem from the IRS because they don't have to randomly pick your tax return to see. They can just automate the tax process in order to see that the amount that you reported didn't tie into the 1099-G, which was given to them. So you're going to almost for sure, have a problem in the future. They're going to probably send out a letter saying, hey, the 1099-G said you had more income than you reported, and we think we should assess this more taxes on it. So what you want to do in that situation, you got to actually get the 1099 adjusted. You got to go to the person who issued the 1099, convince them they made an error, and amend the 1099 so that the IRS has the correct information so that when you file your tax return, it lines up to what the IRS has, and so everybody's happy if that's the case. If it doesn't line up to what the IRS has, the IRS will most likely complain in the event, at least, that you're reporting less income that's being said that you should have reported on the 1099 because they're going to say that we want more money in that case. So in any case, states should not issue Form 1099-Gs to taxpayers they know to be victims of identity theft involving unemployment compensation. Taxpayers who are victims of identity theft involving unemployment compensation should not file an identity theft affidavit with the IRS. Individuals can find more details on taxable unemployment compensation in Tax Topic 418 Unemployment Compensation or in Publication 525 Taxable and Non-Taxable Income on IRS.gov. There are links to those items here. Taxpayers can use the 2019 income for Earned Income Tax Credit. Now this is kind of huge thing here because this Earned Income Tax Credit is a refundable tax credit which many people may qualify for. It's a funny credit because most economists like it because it's a credit that kind of incentivizes people to work. Most type of things that you have a refundable item, they kind of have a disincentive for people to work, and they're trying to put a credit involved where if you go to work, if you pick up work, you don't lose, the benefits. They're trying to incentivize people to work while still giving support. That's what the Earned Income Credit is trying to do. So therefore, you can think of the credit as kind of a bell-shaped curve. You're going to say, well, as your earned income goes up, like W-2 wages or business income, as your earned income goes up, the credit actually increases to some degree, and then it'll flatten out and go back down. So in 2020, you might have had less earned income, which could have actually resulted in a lower amount that you would be getting for the earned income tax credit. And then they're saying here that you might be able to use the 2019 income for the earned income tax credit, meaning if you had earned income in 2019, then possibly they're saying you can use that towards your earned income, which actually could increase the amount of the earned income credit. So it's a kind of funny situation here. I wish it wasn't such a complex credit because it is a benefit to a lot of people, but it's a refundable credit as well. So if your tax liability is at zero, you still might get some money due to the refundable nature of the earned income credit. So for taxpayers with income less than $56,844 in 2020, they may be eligible to claim the earned income tax credit. The EITC, Earned Income Tax Credit Assistant, there's a link to that here, available in English and Spanish, can help determine who is eligible. The earned income tax credit is as much as $6,660 for a family with children, or up to $538 for taxpayers who do not have qualified children. So they kind of linked the children to it. They're going to be, you don't need to have children to get the earned income tax credit, but the amount that you would be receiving would most likely be much higher in the event that you had children. So it's a kind of a complex calculation. But in any case, and this tax season, there's a new rule that can help people impacted by a job loss or change in income in 2020. Under the COVID-related Tax Relief Act of 2020, taxpayers may elect to use their 2019 earned income to figure the credit if their 2019 earned income is more than their 2020 earned income. So you might say, well, why would I want to do that? Because most of the time when you're talking about a benefit type of program, if your earned income is higher, you get less benefit because the idea then is that you wouldn't need it as much. But the earned income tax credit is actually kind of backwards to some degree because it's trying to incentivize people to work. So if you have less earned income, you can actually end up with less of a credit. And so in 2020, if you got less earned income, you might be able to use 2019 income in order to qualify for that earned income, which could actually increase the credit. So it's an interesting situation. You can look for more detail on it here. The same is true for the additional child tax credit. For details, see the instructions for Form 1040, so you can link to that if you want more information about it, or you can look at Publication 596, Earned Income Tax Credit. There's a link to that here as well. Electronic filing makes filing easy. The best way to file a complete and accurate return is to file electronically, and there are several options for doing this, some at no cost. So the IRS has been pushing for some time to try to get everyone to e-file their tax return. That has been advanced a lot since the COVID happened because now they have the social distancing rules over there. So paper return filing will typically be delayed most likely. And the electric return filing will be faster. If you're looking for a refund, if you're getting a refund and you want it fast, then you probably want to electronically file. There are many options to do that. You have the free file option on the irs.gov. And you want to then link to your bank account because that'll be the fastest way to receive the money back. Otherwise, they have to process a manual check, which once again involves some kind of hands-on work over at the IRS, which they're kind of backed up on, it sounds like. Now, if you owe money to the IRS, then, you might want to, your paper file might not be too bad, right? If it gets backed up, not as big a deal. I'm not as worried about that as long as you're not charging me any more penalties and interest on it. Then take as long as you want, right? But if you want the refund, if you have a refund and the refund's coming and you want it fast, then you got to do the electronic file most likely. So visit irs.gov/filing. There's a link to that here for more details about IRS Free File. There's a link to that here, Free File fillable forms and free tax preparation sites. So if you're looking for tax preparation, if you're under a certain threshold of income, then you might be able to use software in order to prepare your tax return, and you might be able to get that software for free. There's different options for it. You can check out the IRS Free File for that. If your income is over a certain threshold, or I would say if you itemize, for example, have the itemized deductions instead of the standard deductions, then you're probably to the point where you don't just want someone or software just to complete the tax return. You probably want advice at that point in time, and you might want to then look for a CPA firm, not just to complete the tax return for this year, but to be an ongoing support in the future, help you out with projections, estimated payments, and all that kind of thing. So, but in any case, you got the free file, the free file fillable forms. You can check out the free tax preparation sites. There's links to those things here, or by finding a trusted tax professional. Free file is a great option for people who are only filing a tax return to claim the recovery rebate credit. Many people this year The tax return preparation is expected to be much higher this year due to people filing tax returns just to get the recovery rebate credit in the event that the economic impact payment round 1 and round 2 or round 2 was less than what it should be. And the remedy for that is to file a tax return. So that means that people that aren't usually required to file a tax return may then want to file a tax return in 2020 just to pick up that credit. The software should have a free option. So if you're not required to file a tax return, but there was a problem with your economic impact payment, then you should be able to file for free a fairly easy tax return with software online with an interview type process to help you to do so that you can then pick up that recovery rebate credit. So the recovery rebate credit, either because they didn't receive an economic impact payment or did not receive the full amount. So use the IRS.gov. IRS tax help is available 24 hours a day on IRS.gov, IRS.gov, the IRS website, the official IRS website, where people can find answers to tax questions and resolve the tax issues online from the safety of their own home. The Let Us Help You, there's a link to that page here, helps answer most tax questions, and the IRS Services Guide, there's a link to that here, links to the other important IRS services. So there's various links in this presentation that you can then go to for many of these kind of options that we have discussed here, and there'll be a link to this in the description.